Good morning. How are y'all doing? I haven't really shown myself making any tea, I should say, in the last, I don't know, couple episodes, because you guys know I'm on this Groundhog's Day challenge and I'm eating and drinking the same thing. And I'm still going in with my navy t-shirts. So I gotta tell you guys, I'm doing well. I cannot wait to go through that rubric with y'all and tell y'all how it's been going. But that's for another time because I'm only 10 days into the challenge and I've got 5 more days. So next week will be the last week and we'll talk about the Groundhog's Day challenge and the progress I've made then. But yeah. But anyway, today I wanted to talk to you guys about something. I even got some notes because I wanted to make sure I didn't leave anything out. But I was watching the YouTube, which I love YouTube, obviously. And I don't know where I ended up in my algorithms that they decided to start sending me all the crash outs that are happening in 2026. I mean, what are we? Are we a bunch of oppositional, defiance, disordered individuals? I mean, what is it? Because it just really seems like people are just having a hard time with authority. And it's all ages, but mostly the algorithms had me in the young people, like the 20s to late 30 category. But I saw some old heads crashing out too. And it was all different races, but a lot of them were minority. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Am I gonna have to look at my statistics and double check this? But that's just what was showing up in my algorithm. And I thought, suffice it to say, we gotta talk about this because absolutely not under any circumstances is this okay. We gotta do better. The kids are watching. We gotta do better, people. So I thought, okay, I have a little bit of experience working with emotional regulation and trying to help people manage their emotions. Not that we're doing any medical therapy type situations here with you, but I thought, let me share things that I use and strategies that I've seen help other people. Because maybe people just don't know. Maybe they just don't know. Maybe they just don't know. And I thought this would be a good thing for us to talk about because you guys know that when you're dealing with executive function challenges, that emotional regulation is foundational. It's at the top of the charts of what you got to have working for you, and it is the foundational piece that lets everything else work for you. Because if you can't get in control of your emotions, you're not going to be able to move forward. You're not going to be able to communicate. You're not going to be able to have good relationships. You're not going to be able to keep a job. You're not going to be able to stay out of trouble. Okay, emotional regulation helps you pull it together and center. All right, so I want to talk about some things. I think I got about 4 or 5 points that I want to make sure I drive home today. So let's get into it. The first thing you have to do when you recognize that, wait a minute, this situation just got tense. You could be talking to your boss. You could be talking to another person that you don't know in the checkout line, or you could be talking to a police officer. Right? So you're someplace where there is either an authority figure that you're having to deal with, or there are some rules and regulations that you got to do, you got to use. You're not at home, so to speak, right? There's a way you need to be acting out here. And you realize, okay, wait a minute. I'm in a place, I'm dealing with people where there's probably some etiquette and rules that I need to be making sure I follow. First one is you got to calm the hell down. You got to pause. You're going to have to breathe. You can't just sense that and go from 0 to 60 because you're going to let people know that you are unstable and they're going to be afraid of you. So you're going to have to, first of all, pause, count to 10, figure that out. You got to learn how to just stop. Because if you don't stop and calm down, you won't be able to do the other things. You got that? So after you calm down, You need to be making sure you're listening and you are watching. That's the reason you got to calm down. Because if you don't calm down, you cannot pay attention. You cannot focus. You cannot make sure that you are hearing what you should be hearing, and that you're seeing what you should be seeing, and that you are doing what you should be doing. If you're all upset and out of control and out of order, you could be saying and doing things that could get you in a lot of trouble. I mean, I'm watching this YouTube crash out of this gorgeous young woman. I mean, just a lovely lady, lovely appearing lady. But she made the mistake when talking to a police officer of not remaining calm. So she took what could have been just a traffic misdemeanor, which was, okay, we get those from time to time. And she escalated it to the point where she found herself getting out of her car to chase the police officer down. I'll tell you what she followed him back to his car to talk about. But my point is that she got to a point where she ended up telling the police officer, I'll shoot your ass. I will. I'll shoot your ass. On what planet is that okay to say to a police officer or to somebody? I mean, if there has to be the last person on the planet that you need to be saying that to, I would think that would be the president and the police officers. Okay, those like the last people you want to be saying that to. But she lost her cool and her mouth just kept going. You see my point? So you got to stop, pause, get calm, open your eyes and open your ears, right? I got down here, you got to be watching for signs that are these people really, what's happening here? Because you could be in an unsafe situation. And if you're busy, flying off the handle and doing all that, you can't assess the situation. I think I may have talked about this before, but you need to calm down so you can make sure you ain't saying nothing and you ain't doing nothing that's going to get you in bigger trouble later. You also need to calm down and watch and listen to make sure these people aren't trying to do anything to hurt you. Are you in a safe space? Right? That's the second thing, listening and watching carefully. And the next thing I have here is, it's very important that after you've listened and watched carefully, and you got a really good idea of what's actually happening, not what you done made up in your head, because you're irrational, but what is literally happening, what you literally hear, what you literally see happening. Once you got a good beat for that, then it's time for you to respond with courtesy and respect. RESPECT. Okay? Find out what it means to me. Remember that song from back in the 60s? Otis Redding and then Aretha Franklin. You're going to have to figure out how to speak to people with respect. This whole gangster culture or rap culture, I don't know where you're getting it from, where you feel like if you feel you've been disrespected, whether it's true or not, but if you feel somebody says something to you or somebody asks you to obey a rule or a regulation or an authority figure steps to you or anybody steps to you and you feel like you've been disrespected, that now you have a right to be disrespectful. If they put their hands on me, if they say something to me, I'm going to do that whole, you're going to have to bring that down because you could end up in more trouble than is necessary. You got this whole beautiful life. We don't want to crash out and ruin it. You got what I'm saying? The goal at the end of the day is for you to get back home safely and for all the other people to get back home safely, because you don't want to be tied up in no crap if you done hurt somebody and now somebody's got a charge against you, right? So the goal is to always remember, let me try to get home as safely as I can. Okay, I got to talk with courtesy and with respect. Now, we were trained back in the day, you see I got this gray hair, to say, sir and ma'am, when we were in a tight situation, when we were talking to our bosses, or definitely when we were talking to the police officer, it was like, well, yes, sir. And it's not a sign of, oh, yes, sir. No, but it's not like that. You're saying it out of respect and courtesy. You're saying to that person, listen, I respect your authority in this situation. Like if I respond to a police officer with sir or ma'am, I'm communicating to that police officer, I respect that uniform. And I respect the authority that the United States of America government has given you. And since I'm a resident or since I'm in these states, the U.S. right now, or I'm living here, I'm going to respect that authority that you're walking in. What is it that I need to do, sir? What is it? What's going on, sir? I'm gonna start with the sirs and the ma'ams. Now I know we just come out of a really strong culture, woke culture, where you had to be woke, you had to make sure you didn't mess up people's pronouns and all that kind of stuff. And so we've kind of gotten away from using sir and ma'am. And a lot of you Gen Zers, you just really may not be comfortable with identifying people with sir and ma'am. I suggest you practice it, because it really is a good tool and a good thing that I think we need to bring back. But if you're not there yet, I get it. It is okay to say to someone, may I please have your name so I know how to address you properly? It's okay to ask. And then you just can call them by their name. May I have your name? Yes, may I please have your name so I can address you properly? They might say, well, I ain't gonna give you my name. Then you say, okay, well, then is it okay if I call you ma'am or sir? You know what I mean? You can ask. If you on that woke stuff still, you could ask. If they refuse to cooperate with you, then you just either figure out whether you're gonna use ma'am or sir, or you just answer the questions without giving them any title. But that's a surefire way if you're dealing with somebody in authority. Because typically people in authority, like a police officer or the owner of a grocery store or a shop that you're in, they're going to tell you their name, because they're in a job. They're not trying to lose their job for you. So they're going to tell you who they are so that you can respond to them using a name that makes you feel comfortable addressing them as, right? But if you're talking to another person, they may tell you, I'm not giving you my name, because they don't know if you're going to retaliate. So in that case, you just have to either say ma'am or sir. If you feel they may be offended by it, you just address them as politely as you can without giving them a title. Okay? The other thing I want you to be aware of is, because we talked about, calming down. Did we talk about speaking clearly? Let's talk about speaking clearly, because I watched a lot of these crash outs, and everybody want to go to whatever slang or whatever cultural way they communicate and thinking people are supposed to instantly know what they're saying. He tagged me, or whatever. I don't know any of some of the stuff. I couldn't even understand what the people were saying. Okay. So you have to realize that we have English as a standard language. If you are in the country and you just don't understand English, that's fine. Do the best you can. But do not use colloquial slang terms that people don't know, because they don't know what you're talking about. This is the one time when you're in a bit of an altercation and things could escalate. This is the one time you want to be crystal clear in your communication. You for real want to be clear. This is one of those times. And you want to communicate using the best grammatically correct, yes, I said it, grammatically correct English that you can come up with. So if a police officer comes to you and say, well, ma'am, I want to know what happened here, that is not the time for me to start spiraling out. Well, I don't know, man. He did this. He did that. And, well, I don't know, God. No, I'm going to calm myself down and say, I'm going to address the person with sir or ma'am. I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm going to say, ma'am or sir, this is what happened. ... I was coming here. I did this. I didn't do that. Be very calm, very rational. Now, I will say a lot of the people that did the crash outs, they started that way. But they did not realize that you need to stay that way. You got to keep speaking calmly and clearly through the entire interaction. You can't start there and then say, well, I give what I get. I reciprocate. I match energy. No, ma'am. You don't do that when you're talking to your boss, a police officer, or the owner of a store or an establishment that you're visiting. You don't match their energy. Even if they do get a little bit more, irritated with you because they're trying to maybe manage the situation. A police officer is dealing with you. He's dealing with the people over here. He's dealing with this person. He's got paperwork. He's trying to make sure he stays safe. He's trying to make sure you stay safe. They may raise the level and get a little tense. That does not mean you are supposed to match that. Okay? If your boss is doing that, your supervisor, and they're a little upset and they snap, you are not supposed to match that energy, because you're not in that authority to match that energy. I want to get that clear. You're supposed to stay calm and rational, because remember, you're trying to get home safely. And in the case of a job, you're trying to make sure you can keep your job until you're ready to leave. You don't want to just be fired, right? For how you're in subordination, right? So you're going to keep that speech as clear grammatical English, because you're in America, as you can. If they have a cop that speaks another language, fine. But if they don't use no slang. And speak clearly throughout the entire interaction. All right? Now, the other point I want to make is that you don't want to display any erratic movements, because I saw a lot of that. Oh my gosh. It's like, I said, are these people undiagnosed with something? Because it just did not make any sense. Now, I know the algorithms will play mind games on you, and they will send you every crash out and craziness in the entire United States of America, because it's an algorithm. And I get that this is probably just, what is the 80-20 rule? You got 20% of people doing 80% of the crap. I get that. But it just was significant enough that I thought we need to talk about it. And one of the things I noticed is this erratic movement where they pacing back and forth, like they can't get themselves calm and settled in their own body. I mean, how do you get to the age, the big age of your 20s, and not be able to calm yourself down in your own body so that you do not present as a threat to somebody else? You have to recognize a store manager, a police officer, your boss, your supervisor. They cannot allow you to display erratic behaviors walking around where they don't know what you're going to do next. You're forcing them to now have to escalate to contain you. The amount of people, and I'm shocked, women who could not, well, women can be emotional, but I just would think that they would know better. But obviously not these women. I saw some men, but it was a large number of women that couldn't seem to contain their bodies. Like they would be asked a question and they would get so angry. And one lady in front of the cops was just saying, I'm going to beat the shit out. I'm going to beat her. When I see her, I'm going to beat her. And she wanted to stay at the business so that she could wait for the young lady, because she felt the young lady was somewhere hiding in the bathroom in the business. And she was going to wait at the business for the young lady to come out, because the young lady, I think, may have put her hands on this young girl, which was unfortunate because she wasn't the one that was in the wrong initially. You know what I'm saying? The other person attacked her, and they had footage to show it that she had been attacked. So she was clearly in the right, yet she was the one that ended up in jail because they could not locate the other girl that hit her and ran. They couldn't find the offender. Okay. They were going to search for her, but they may have found her later, but during the I can't get it. During the TV show, the YouTube show, they didn't find the girl, but it ended up with the girl that was in the right going to jail. And I thought, that's so unfortunate. These babies, they don't know. You do not tell a cop that you're going to wait outside these people's establishment until you feel somebody that they've checked and they say the person ain't in there, that you feel is still in there, and you're going to beat them up. You can't tell a cop that and think they're just going to say, okay, bye. Maybe that's what's been happening since COVID. Maybe this defund the police have made it to the point that there have not been any police in the streets to police people. So people just aren't used to it. And because I'm old enough, I remember how we are supposed to act with police before the whole defund police, which is why I'm doing this, because I'm trying to tell you guys things that we did that helped us have lives and not end up in jail and not end up with these records and not end up in a mess, not end up accidentally killing people, not ended up accidentally killed ourselves. These are things we did. We need to bring this kind of stuff back. So don't be pacing back and forth, because people are watching you. And like I said, they're trying to determine if you are a threat and if they need to protect themselves. And if they feel that your behavior is so erratic that you pacing back and forth and you got your hands moving, you're going to end up in the cop car. Because they got to contain you so you don't just accidentally jump up and start biting somebody or start, they don't stabbing somebody or start, because a lot of this stuff is happening before they've had a chance to frisk you down. So remember that, no erratic body movements. And I think the last thing that is just, I can't believe I got to even say this, is you got to follow the directions. I don't know who told us that that the people of America do not have to follow the directions of law enforcement. Who told us that we do not have to follow the directions of the manager at a store who has been given the authority to police that store by his owner, by the store owners? His management has given him that authority to police that place. And if he finds somebody in the place that he feels is a threat, he's allowed to ask them to leave. Who told us we could say no? That's like somebody coming to your house and you tell them to leave and they tell you no. You have to obey those rules that establishment has. And if you're not doing it, they do have the right to ask you to leave. Hence, is why they call the cops to have you removed if you don't listen to them. But why escalate it to the cops? There are other places you could eat. There are other places you could go, right? If a cop or a person in authority asks you to do something, now we're not saying they're asking you to do something crazy. They're not asking you to commit a crime. They're not asking you to hurt somebody else. They're not asking you to hurt yourself. They're simply asking you to follow the protocol that their jobs have in place to keep both of y'all safe, that the establishments have in place to keep the patrons safe and keep the employees safe, that the office has in place to keep everybody safe and to keep the employees at the office space being able to do their job. You know what I mean? If you're in a situation with your boss, there are rules in place. You do realize that, right? Human resources in every job. Police come to you. They have a job. They didn't just randomly decide to show up to where you are. They have a job to do that has responsibilities, that when they took that job, they read the list of responsibilities and decided, okay, I will carry that out. They're not just picking on you to be picking on you. You know, I'll leave you guys with this. The last, and I know I'm getting a little long here, the last one I saw, it was just really sad because this parent had two beautiful children in the back seat that appeared to be about 5 and maybe 7, a boy and a girl. And they were like, well, is mommy gonna, go to jail? And they were crying, they were scared. Obviously, mom escalated it to a point that the officers had to basically pull her out the car. And it could have all been avoided if she had just accepted the traffic citation. But she escalated it to a point where then the cop felt like, well, if you're not going to respect me, I don't have to give you any allowances. It's kind of like a cop may have authority, but they may have some wiggle room. You don't know how many times, and yes, I'm Black, and I'm a female. You don't know how many times I've been stopped by cops. And I will smile. I will be polite. I will say, sir, I'm so sorry. Whatever he needs, I give it to him. I keep my hands where they can see them. I have no problems. Do you know how many times they just send me away with just a warning? They don't even bother to ticket me. Now, you may say that's different for Black men, and that may be true. It may be different for Chinese men, Spanish men. It may be different for white men and white women. I don't know. But statistics seem to suggest that we got this wrong, that minorities are not disproportionately targeted. So I don't know if we're just being fear-mongered by the algorithms, to think something is the way it is when it may not be. Do the statistics, because the statistics seem to suggest that white people get shot too, and bad things can happen to them too if they're not careful. So my point is this: there's a way you can handle yourself to increase the likelihood that you get to go home or that you get to keep your job. Now, when you're home and you're safe, because that is the goal, you can file whatever grievance and whatever complaints you want to, because that's your right. And if you feel you've been unfairly targeted, unfairly treated, the boss just wanted to get rid of you, the people in the establishment were just being mean to you, the cop was just being unfair, that's fine. Do your grievance from the safety of your home. I support you in that, because you have a right to do that, and let the judge or let your boss, the HR department where you work, let them decide it all out. But don't you try to be a vigilante out there and do any of this horrible stuff I'm telling you about, because I want to see you at home. I want to see you prosper. I want to see you win. And I know a lot of people with executive function challenges, this is big for us. That emotional regulation is big. We really have to practice these skills. All right, guys, I've gone in about 25 minutes now, so I'm going to get off. But I want you to have a good day and replay this here. Send this to somebody. If you know there's somebody having a little bit of a challenge, send this to them. Because if you follow these steps I'm telling you, you're going to end up in a much better way. In a much better way. All right? All right, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.